Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the Kreegercast. This is the start to a new series on this channel where I'll be interviewing veterans from all wars, and I am so pleased that the first veteran on my channel is actually a personal friend of mine due to my time with BSA Troop 1, William Russell Paxson. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the Kreegercast. I'm your host, Patrick Kreeger, and I'm joined by my father and William Russell Paxson today.
Yeah. Hi. Say hello.
Yeah, well, hi. Yeah.
I know this was a bit spur of the moment. I thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate your asking me. I just hope I've got something interesting to talk about, but we'll find out.
Well, so today I was kind of hoping we could talk about your experiences during World War II.
Yeah.
What got you involved?
Well, it got me involved with just the war itself, when Pearl Harbor, and at that age group that was at that time, we were all excited. My first approach, I immediately, while I was still in school, and I was going to Fullerton, JC at the time, and I went right up to the Navy to volunteer into the Navy, and the recruiter told me to don't be in a hurry, go back and stay in school for a little while, and then make your decision what you want to do. So he turned me down. But the thing was, at that point in time, Roosevelt knew that we didn't have an Air Force, and we were faced with a possibility of being involved. And so one of the approaches they took, which was very successful, was they went to colleges and junior colleges, and they set up a course that you would get school credits for, but you would learn how to fly.
Huh.
And so we couldn't fly on the West Coast here, so they recruited, if they got enough boys together at Fullerton JC, where I was attending, then they could go ahead and set this up at Parker, Arizona, a little airport there. And so at that point in time, I was totally afraid of heights. And you get me on a ladder more than 2 steps and I'm a little shaky. But they needed my friends needed one more person to get involved. And so they talked me into it, and I agreed to be a part of this, learning how to fly. But I really hadn't thought it out, but it just, and I remember when we started after 8 hours of just learning how to fly, it was time to check you out on how to recover from a spin. And so here I am, this young kid, afraid of heights. And my instructor had 5 students. And this particular day, I was the 5th one to be going up. And sitting there on the ground, watching that plane in the sky, go up, stall out, fall off, go into a spin, and then recover. And know that I'm going to be doing that. And I was really sick from just fear itself.
Yeah. After only 8 hours of training?
I'm sure I was as white as a sheet. I didn't get sick to the point of reacting to it, other than just,
Just being afraid,
and but fortunately I had a heck of a good instructor, and he figure well knew what was wrong with me when I probably as white as a sheet
He's
got
probably
in
seen
that
that before,
plane.
yeah.
And he took me up and did one spin. And stalled it out, took one spin. He said, okay, we're going in and we'll come back tomorrow. And so we did. Well, the next day we went up and we started doing them. And after a few of them, I really felt at home. And I really have to thank that man for understanding and the reason that I developed into a pretty damn good pilot. I know after that, in primary training, when we were flying a Stearman, that was a biplane. And
I know the Stearman, yeah. There are people that still had them after the war, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The propeller in our family room's off of a Stearman.
But anyway, you have 60 hours of total time. And it's broken up into 3 sections. And so you, after the first section, then you are taken up with an inspector, a check pilot. And he'll either wash you out right then and there or will pass you. And I remember, our class was cut right in half by 50%. 50% of the students
that
started with were washed out and either sent to gunnery school or were made bombardiers or made navigators. But anyway, I went up on my first check ride, and you're very nervous, because this is it. This is where it tells whether you're going to do it. And I remember after flying me around, the inspector, suddenly he says, have you ever done a slow roll? And I said, my gosh, no. And he said, you want to do one? Well, I knew better than to say no.
No, yeah.
And so I said, yes. So he said, I'm going to do one, and you see what you can do. And, man, he just brought that, took it into a dive, got that Stearman up to the right speed, and then he brought that nose up, and he just held that point. I just marveled how well he held that point right on the come
horizon,
out straight. Yeah. He says, okay, try it. Well, I've got to say, I was pretty proud of that. It certainly wasn't as good as his slow roll, but my nose didn't quiver
wobble too much.
Didn't very much, And so, well, after we landed, I went up to my instructor, and I said, how'd I do? And he looked at me, he said, I don't know what the hell you did up there, but he said, that guy passed you for all 60 hours. And so you're
ready to
free. Go. I was just flabbergasted. But and the slow roll would be a very good test, because when you're rolling, you're doing 3 controls at the same time to know that point up, down, round, whatever. And the very fact I got without flipping us over or doing something bad, so then, from then on, it was just, in fact, I got in trouble because when I was in basic training, because, I just felt so much at home up there flying, and at that point in time, we had been taught how to formation fly, and with that BT-13, and it was a good little airplane, but I just was excited about that formation flying. But we were told never to do that on our own without the instructor.
Yeah.
But we had taking off, and we had to go to an auxiliary field and do some practice. And on flying over to that field, I run across my buddy in another airplane. So I just pulled up on this wing, and I just felt at home there, flying on his wing. And suddenly he started to turn away, and I just followed him. And then finally, and I looked around, and here's one of the instructors, and he saw us up there flying formation. He pulled up over, and he's sitting on my left wing. Everything just sinks. And so I had to meet the elimination board because of that. And the only thing that I can say that got me past that was the fact that I had really volunteered and as a cadet and with my squadron and did the best I could do. And it was just one thing that they was to my credit.
Yeah, because you had no other things on your record, right?
No.
Yeah.
And also, certain things, volunteering for different things. So I guess that was noted.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I passed that board, but it cost me a rank when I graduated. And most of them were made lieutenants. I was made what they called one step down, a warrant officer. And it took me a long time to get out of that particular rank. But I was still in. That was the important thing, and I got to fly. And the Army Air Force was good about giving you the plane you wanted to fly.
Oh, okay.
And and I had sit in one, what they called a twin-engine A-20. And it was a low-altitude attack bomber, sort of was. And it was, fairly fast. And I just fell in love with that little cockpit, no co-pilot. You got a gunner radio man that sits behind you. And man, I just felt at home, and that was my airplane I wanted. And I was sitting down in the replacement depot in South Carolina and waiting for the last school on the A-20s would be finished, and then we would step right in. And suddenly there were the AP system announced 60 names and said, "You're restricted to the base." And I was one of those 60. And what it amounted to was the fact that they were forming a separate group. And I think that they went to this particular pool for this group of pilots that were thinking of low altitude flying. And so, anyway, they took the 60 of us and said we'd be in France in a very short while. And if you got any clothes in the town, in the cleaners, why, turn them into the office, and hopefully someday they'll catch up with you. So anyway, but what they did was somebody had come up with the idea, that was just before the invasion into Europe, that we could resupply the frontline troops from the air. And so they picked 6 of us out to form this group, and they sent us up to New York the very next day. And like I said, the clothes were, if you had any in the cleaners, why, they were, you kissed them goodbye. But anyway, they formed this group, and we just flew all over upper New York, low altitude flying. And you said, well, what good did that do? Well, it gave you the knowing what that airplane or what you got to be thinking about, because on an alluvial plain, on a mountain, there can be, just kind of a gradual climb. But if you could find yourself, thinking you're fine, but you're climbing faster than the airplane can handle it. So, you begin to wise up and think about that when you're low altitude flying.
Yeah, are you subject to downdrafts and stuff?
Yeah,
Any of that?
right.
Oh, that low, huh?
Yeah,
So it's below
I've never,
14,000 feet?
Yeah, I've never run across. I know we buzzed all of New York, upper New York, and that's all we did was low altitude flying.
Did you use oxygen? I mean, air?
No.
Okay, so it was all below 14,000 feet.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
And anyway, I know we had heard that the government was getting a lot of complaints because the chickens weren't laying, and the cows weren't milking, because we were flying around there, and I guess getting things upset. But anyway, I think eventually that fell too. But at that point in time, I was assigned to the Troop Carrier Command. So then from then on, I was in the cargo planes.
Okay.
And the DC-3 was the main plane.
Oh, that was a big plane, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the old the airline plane.
Yeah, that became the Continental Airline plane.
Right.
That's what Aunt Pat flew on.
Yeah, DC-3s. Yeah.
Then, of course, later on, they come around with what they called the C-46, which was, if I recall right, it was a Curtiss plane. And that was originally designed to take over the DC-3 and the airlines.
Oh, okay.
But right at that point, why the government just took it over completely. So then we switched entirely to the DC-3, not the DC.
The C-46.
Curtiss Select C-46.
Yeah.
And but it was a little touchier plane. The DC-3 is like the B-25. To get into the A-20 school, I had to be trained in the B-25. That was a twin-engine bomber. And that plane was just, you couldn't make a mistake in it. It's just, and the DC-3 was
Very forgiving, huh?
Yeah, very, very forgiving, and just a joy to fly. I remember once, it's kind of stupid, but anyway, I had read, that a bomber like a B-25, and you're being attacked by a fighter plane, if you can shorten up his run by turning into him and make him dodge, then you're saving your own life, because he's sitting out there just blasting away at you. Yeah. Well, I was up one day flying with my buddy as a co-pilot, and I was up fairly high, but I looked down to the left, and here were 5 P-51s flying in trail. Just, they were doing their thing. And I couldn't help myself. I just took that nose of that B-25 and headed down for him. And then I didn't get too close to him,
No.
but I made the motion, then headed for home. And the next thing I know, I look out there, and here's all 5 of them coming in, to make a run on me. Well, it's just impulse. I didn't even think about it. I just turned into them, and I had them going over. The last one come up and pulled up on my wing, and he just shook his head, and I signaled to him, and he went on. Now, I'm sure all of those 5 guys really got a lesson, because they were probably as to what they could expect when it really comes time to be into combat. But it was fun. Of course, I'm so busy there, it had no relationship, or I wasn't nervous about it.
Right.
But my poor guy that was the co-pilot,
The radio guy.
is sitting through that whole thing. He was pretty upset. But anyway, that's anyway, then from then on, once I got into the DC-3, and then I never got out of this country. My assignments were always right in this country, and started out with an assignment towing gliders at the glider training school, and on double tows, where you take 2 of them and go up fly, and you release them, or they release,
Right.
and then you've got a place where you drop your ropes. And,
2 gliders on one powered aircraft?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, one plane. Well,
I didn't know they
they're
did
on
that.
shorter, one shorter than the other, so they can sit there. Now, it's interesting. I got a comment later on after the war. They did away with the glider training program,
Mm-hmm.
and all of us that were still in the service in the Troop Carrier Command were then checked out and took over the responsibilities
For the gliders.
of flying the glider.
Oh, wow.
And that was always exciting to me, because at the GC, well, I'm not too sure. It just doesn't come to me. If I'm not thinking about it, why?
There it is.
It'll be right there. But anyway, they checked us out on them. And, flying that glider, as long as you made sure you were overshooting and not undershooting your landing spot, because if you undershoot it, you're dead
No,
in
you
the
can't
water.
power up.
Nothing you
But,
can do.
You could, on that glider, CG-4A, I think was called, and you could throw that nose up and throw that into a stall, and just almost come straight down, and then flare it out and come in and make you a smooth landing. And
So you could really slow
yeah.
down, huh?
and I found that kind of exciting, and so
For a kid that's afraid of height, right?
yeah. And anyway, that's something you couldn't do with the airplane.
Yeah.
And but I do know that one time later on, I got one different assignment. One of them was flying a hospital ship out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and that was one of the nicest periods of my flying experience, because out of the general hospital, military hospital there at Lincoln, Nebraska, I was assigned to the colonel of that hospital. And basically I was his airplane and
His pilot,
with my
yeah.
crew, yeah. And so if they had to one of the field hospitals, and they were the hub, if they had an emergency out there, I could fly the specialists out there, or I could fly out, pick them up, and bring them back.
Yeah.
And basically, and that was my job. And so I took pains. Anytime I got an assignment to fly to one of those hospitals, I didn't just go out and climb in the plane and take off. I made out a complete plan of, so I could try and estimate my time. And sometimes I've hit those right on the minute, where I've estimated how much time it's going to take me before I can land. And a couple of times I just hit it right on the head, which is impossible, but it happens. But anyway,
It's like winning the lottery.
But that paid off a couple of times for me. And I've got to say this, one on a trip that my airplane that was assigned to him was in for an inspection. And the colonel needed to get over to Battle Creek, Michigan for some kind of a meeting. And so he got, from the airport there, military airport, he got a plane assigned to him with a pilot that would fly us over. So, and it was going to be an overnight deal at Battle Creek. And I can remember I'm sitting in the back of that airplane, just relaxed, because I have no duties of flying. I'm just, what do you call it, a passenger. And suddenly the colonel got there was a cloud bank that was in. And it wasn't very high, and we were flying above it. You just couldn't see the ground.
Yeah.
And so anyway, everything was going along fine, and the colonel asked me, where were we? And so I picked up the earphones and put them on, and every station has the call. There'll be three letters, and they're coming over on the Morse code.
Mm-hmm.
Those three letters, and identified the airport that by the Morse code that I was picking up. And I told him, I says, we're heading into Chicago. We're homing in on Chicago. And he says, looked up at the compass, and we're flying south, direct south into Chicago. Now, how that guy got so far north
yeah.
of where we want to go, because we wanted to go below the Great Lakes and then go up to Battle Creek, Michigan.
Yeah.
And so, man, from then on, I left the earphones on to find out what they were doing.
Yeah.
Well, they homed in, and so they, from there, then they headed over to Battle Creek, Michigan, and they're picking up that station, and of course he's got to let down through the clouds, and so that they had the four canals, it's divided into four like pies, and you got an A and an N and an A and an N.
Mm-hmm.
So you got you can tell where you are by which is the N is dit, da, dit, A is dit, da, and they go together. It's a solid sound, so you know when you're on the beam.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And so, and you get the A or the N, you know what quadrant
What quadrant?
you're in.
Yeah.
And so I left there. Well,
That's
first
a
thing-
DF steer, isn't it?
yeah, the first thing they did was they obviously, when you're coming in, homing in on that radio station, if you're far away from the center, then to fly through that, the steady call tells you how close you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went flying in the in quadrant, picked up the A real quick. You got the dull, then and I knew they really had gone in very close to, and
to the
so
station
then
itself.
yeah, they pictured, I guess they're on the wrong leg, because the next thing I know, they've taken a head off going out in the in quadrant, and I picked up, the thing is you never touch the radio, because the only way you know whether you're heading into or away from is an increase or a decrease of the volume you're hearing.
Yeah.
Well, they made the big mistake of touching it and turning the volume up, and I couldn't believe it. So finally, I followed them all the way through on and they finally broke through. And when they did break through, I know the pilot said the airport that way, the co-pilot said the airport's that way, you know. And all this time you're building your confidence up in these two pilots. And so finally they got squared away. But then they got two airports. That steady beam that I was talking about is right over the main highway down there on the ground. And so there's no way they could get that. But like they, it was forward or backward. But anyway, there were two airports, one on the left and one on the right. And the one that we wanted to land on was on the airport on the right, was Battle Creek. And darn if he didn't call on the radio to Battle Creek and then landed on the other airport. And he called the tower up and he said, well, where do you want me to park? And the tower said, well, where are you? and about that time, the co-pilot hit him on the pilot on the shoulder. And on the airport was the name of this airport, which wasn't Battle Creek. Well, then the guy, instead of calling that tower and getting permission to take off, he just taxied out and took off. And I'm surprised that he wasn't nailed on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, then he called to Battle Creek and we landed. We stayed overnight, and it turned out we were to meet the next morning. So, and they were late getting there. The colonel was, he was upset. And, you know, that they would keep us waiting. So we were sitting there waiting for them to get here. We finally took off, and I went with them into the where the Well, no, that was later. We took off, and with the idea, because the weather didn't look good, that we would fly so far, land, check the weather before we went on. So we took off and landed at this airport, and the pilot and the co-pilot both went into the weather station there to check the weather.
Flight service, yeah.
I went in too.
Because now you no longer trust it.
And I was the opinion myself, if I was flying, I would take off. But the colonel asked me, what do you think? And I said, Colonel, it's not bad. We could probably make it. But I said, what I've been through with these two guys, I'd just as soon stay overnight. And he said, I would too. And so we stayed there overnight. I'll never forget that. But anyway.
Thank you very much for joining us today here on the Kreegercast and listening to the stories of William Russell Paxson. Please subscribe so that you don't miss out on the additional parts of his story, as well as the future stories that World War II vets, as well as veterans from other wars, will be sharing with us. Until next time, see you out there.